Hey monkeys, how you doing? Damian Keyes here. So yesterday I was with a band called Omnibus, who are friends of mine. We were chatting about some up and coming releases, and the drummer Elliot asked me a question so good that I thought I would bring it to you guys in the form of a video. And that question was, how can the band headline Ali Pali? Now, if you don't know, Ali Pali is a venue in London called Alexandra Palace, which has a capacity of 10,000. So it's a big venue, and it's right up there with that kind of that arena level tour. How can a band, especially on the rock circuit, get to the point where we can headline a 10,000 capacity venue? So let's go through it. How can you headline an arena? So how are you going to get to a point where you can headline to 10,000 capacity venues? Well, let's start off the same as with anything in life, which is going back to the beginning. If you want to run a marathon, where do you start? If you want to shred like a demon on guitar, where do you start? And if you want to get to the point where you're headlining massive venues, where do you start? You start at the beginning. You start at a very small local venue, probably around about 50 capacity, and you figure out how you are going to fill that capacity venue. So in a 50 capacity venue, you're probably looking at something like the Little Theatre, which is in Barnet. That's a venue in London, holds about 50 people. And so with 50 people in there, it's rammed. Now you can do this with friends, family, schoolmates, and just Facebook friends that you can start to bring down. You should be able to get to that point very simply without any help. When the band is able to play a gig and invite your friends and family down, you should be able to get to the point where you are playing a 50 capacity venue pretty quick. Now, once you've got to that point, the next level for most local bands is usually around about 100 to 150. So let's say 120-ish that we want to fill out. So this goes past friends, family, Facebook friends. Now we're starting to actually having to build a bit of a following to start to get them down to fill out 100 to 150 capacity venues. So for example, in the UK, there's the Leeds Club in Leeds, a wicked venue which holds about 120, 150 people. How are you going to fill that up? Well, firstly, we've got to start building the buzz in the local area. Now you guys are probably at a point where you can do this, or that you can see how to do this. But we're talking about how do we get to Ali Pali. The next thing, the next size venue up from that is probably going to be about 200. So let's say the Adelphi in Hull. So that is a venue which is on the touring circuit, which you're going to play a bunch of times to 5 people or 20 people or 50 people, and you're going to start building it up. But just like anything else, we've got to keep playing. We've got to be putting out good content. We've got to be playing tours. We've got to put ourselves out there as a good band. Now, when we get to this level, this is where things change, okay? Because this is where people have to see you and want to come and see you again and again, because if you're on a touring circuit, you've got to be a band which is good enough. Now, there's a difference between friends and family and playing outside of your town and actually getting people to come back and bring their friends a second, a third, and a fourth time. Now, this is where what you do live starts to really matter. It's not just your songs, it's looking after your fan base, but it's also you putting on a show which is so good that people are telling their friends about it. Now, this is where you can go back to other videos that I've done, but things like, what song are you opening up your show with? What are you closing your show with? How long are you playing for? What are you doing live that's gonna make people go absolutely crazy? Now that is where you start jumping from a 200 capacity venue once you've done it once or twice and people are saying, you've got to come and see this band, they are amazing. Once you do that, then you start jumping up to something like a 300 capacity venue. Now there's a little bit of a boost at this point, and that is because when you can play a venue and bring 200 people, which is what we've talked about to this point, something happens. You become a very valuable asset as a support band, because you are be able to bring a couple of 100 people. And if you think about a band wanting something from a support, what do they want? They want to sell tickets. They want to know that their show is going to be absolutely rammed out, as does the promoter. You've become valuable. So all of a sudden you can start to get on support tours. Now this isn't about going and finding a booking agent, a live agent. This is about saying, no, we just bring a couple of 100 people to our shows. We are an asset. And that way bigger bands will be sniffing around you. Of course, you get onto some support tours or support slots, and all of a sudden it's like a big collab. All of a sudden more people are seeing you, more people are hearing about you, and you are able to jump from that 200 upwards to maybe 300. So a 300 capacity venue, 300 or 400 capacity venue would be something like, for example, well, last week I was in Amsterdam, went to go and see Don Broco at a venue called Melkweg. Now they've done a very interesting thing where they've broken out of the UK and they're playing Europe and America, obviously some bigger, some smaller capacity venues, but the reason is because they've been doing this thing for a while and it's going round and round, and that momentum thing is the key. But they've taken the jumps from 50 to 100. Notice that what we aren't doing is we aren't saying, I just want to play Ali Pali. How can I just be a support band for the Foo Fighters or a massive band that'll just do it for us? What we've got to do is we've got to do baby steps, 50, then 100. Each of these things is a strategy and targets in itself. So now we've got to this point where we're about 300-400 capacity. Now the next thing is probably going to be the kind of 500 to 800 capacity. So in Brighton there's a venue called the Concord 2. If you're looking at some of the O2 academies, some of them are a bit bigger, some of them go up to 2,000, which we'll get to in a minute. But all of a sudden, we are now on quite a big circuit. If you want to headline these venues, you have to be doing a lot of things right. Your social media needs to be bang in order. You need to be putting out music regularly, and people need to be engaging with it. Just because you're doing stuff, if the audience isn't buying into it, you will be stuck at a lower level. So again, it's all about momentum and doing things and building your audience. But once we get to that point, once we get to that kind of 500 plus capacity venue, now we are onto a winner. Now we can actually sustain what we're doing and be able to put some of the money that we're making back into the band to be able to make, you know, better quality music, put better social media out. We've got time to sustain what we do and interesting stories, and we're at a level that we can now realistically get radio, magazines, because that is a big stage when you're on 500 capacity venues around the UK. And then from jumping to 500 to say 1,000 or even 2,000 with the bigger O2 academies is now realistic. Now, as soon as you get to that level, you have a team of people around you that are working with you. So you can see how it's starting to grow, and you're able to do more creative things. You're building, more people are sniffing around you. So therefore collabs are easier. And the reality is, at this point, when you're at that 1,000, 1,500 capacity venue, to keep that momentum going, if you're working on the right things, can become easier until you're hitting the Brighton Centre or Hammersmith Apollo, for example, which is in London, which is about 5,000, I think. And then after that, as you can see, the momentum is going to take you up with support slots, with people around you, and the right, I suppose, the right budgets to be able to take you to that 10,000 capacity venue. But notice, the last part of this video was relatively straightforward and easy. The hard part was once you've done the easy bit, 50 to 100, how are you going to get from 100 to 500? And that to me is where you've got momentum. But you've got to get effectively from 100 to 200 capacity venues. And if you can fill that up in many cities around the country, that is when you have gone round and round in circles. You can slingshot off it and start to really, really build. So for me, the real tough bit for most of you guys watching is how can you get to a point around the country consistently where you can hit 200 people coming to your gig, because then you're a valuable asset and then you can start to use that as a springboard for the rest of it. But it's an interesting case study of how you can get to Ali Pali. Notice the first bit, pretty easy. The last bit, relatively straightforward. Yes, you have to have a lot of things that go for you, but relatively straightforward. But that middle bit, really, really difficult. And that's where local bands struggle. Local bands are able to get to a point where they can bring 100 to 150 people to a local venue and nothing outside of that. And trying to get from a local venue from 100 and 150 to 200 to 300, again, very, very difficult unless they can start getting supports and collabs. So that is the answer of how you get to headline Ali Pali. And this is a long period of time, but I can't stress enough, that plan is a couple of years and it's working on one piece at a time. I'm not working on Ali Pali, I'm working on 50 capacity venue until I know I can fill it up. And then I say, right, we've done that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to try and get this to 100. And I'm not thinking of Ali Pali, I'm thinking of 100. Piece by piece by piece by piece. And the more you're fitting everything together in a coherent strategy, the more likely it is that you can build it one step at a time, piece by piece, so you can go from, yes, I can run around the block, to yes, I can actually do a marathon. That is how you play Ali Pali. Cool, so that's my answer of how you can play to 10,000 capacity venue. But if you've got questions, I'm about to relaunch the hashtag Ask Damo show as of next week. So I'm looking for some more questions. I'm looking for a bunch of ways that I can actually not just bring you value with content, but how I can also feature your bands and your music. So I will be in touch about ways that I can start to do that on all of my social media, because I want to be able to show off some of the awesome bands that you guys are in. So if you've got any questions, I'd love to have them. Hashtag Ask Damo down below, or on Twitter or on Facebook, or anything that you are connected with me on. Also, don't forget the book, The Rule Breaker's Guide to Social Media, is out on the 21st of June. So if you want that on Kindle, or a physical copy, or potentially an audiobook, which I'll be doing myself this week, then 21st of June, keep that in mind. Like, subscribe, I'll see you guys tomorrow.